to The Conversation. I am Dakbo Adigboye. Now, former Vice President of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, has asked President Bola Tinubu to explain the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, a $3.3 billion emergency crude repayment loan. Also on the program, just 2 years at the helm of Citizens Coalition for Change, opposition leader Nelson Chamisa announced on Wednesday, that's January 25th, he was leaving the opposition party. These are the issues. Welcome to The Conversation. I am Dakbo Adigboye. Let's talk. Let's start off in Nigeria. NNPCL had on the 16th of August last year said it would secure a $3.3 billion loan to give support to the Naira and also stabilize the foreign exchange market. The former Vice President of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, in a statement he personally signed on Thursday in Abuja, said the curious thing about the transaction is that the federal government had not been speaking about it. He said the only information available to the public on the transaction is coming through unofficial sources from the institute. Now, Sheriff Adekoya, public affairs analyst, joins from Lagos, Nigeria. Sheriff, thank you for joining the conversation.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
All right, now let's start off with the reservations of the former Vice President of Nigeria. Let me start by asking, what exactly do you think of the loan, the initiative, the idea? Do you think it's timely? Do you think it's a step, in the right direction by the federal government before we take the reactions of the former, Vice President?
Well, of course, we really cannot attain any development from any part of the world. We do not seek for more than what we get or what we earn as revenue, if truly we intend to attain a higher level of capital development. But this, to keep it short, it is timely, it is due. There are other conversations that should follow, but the first is, do I think it is? Yes, it is.
Now, talking about the loan and access to this loan, would you say is the loan, in the government's borrowing plan as approved by the National Assembly?
Say that again, please.
Okay, now the loan, would you say it's, in line or in tune with the government's borrowing plan as approved originally by the National Assembly?
Well, as at this very present moment, the details of the modus is not what I have due authoritative knowledge of. What I know is that the process went through the right channels, and every detail was observed as due, as at when the application was put forward mid last year. I'm sure it came to full fruition as regards the processing around July, August, if I'm not mistaken. So if there are other things that needed to have been done, and if that has been done or has not been done, I do not have adequate information about that. But I'm so sure that last year, every necessary mechanics was put in place, and it was actually given appropriate publicity, appropriate.
All right. Now let's look at the fact that Nigeria is already neck deep, in a debt. Many of it, of course, has been inherited from the previous administrations, and now this particular one. What do you think this will portend for our loan financing as a nation when it comes to, coming out of, this history of being indebted to quite a number of organizations and even countries?
Well, the truth be told, we are indebted. There are no two ways about that. That is not a sufficient reason for us not to make efforts to move forward. And if we have decisions or resolutions to move forward as a nation, as a people, we need to understand that every tenet of development must be obeyed. And one critical part of that in this super fast, hyper competitive age, it is super fast and is hyper competitive, is that we need to source for more funds from around the world, within and outside Nigeria. The concern is never about the loan. The concern can then be the process, the modus operandi, then the usage. That's all. The fact that we needed to take more loan is a justified reason. The fact that we need quite a number of support to move ourselves further, because when you get the appropriate loan, just like in the case of this very loan in discourse, the project Gazelle, it was not specifically for any project in mind, but for central purpose of stabilizing the economy. Because Nigeria has been a nation for several decades now that our economic stability is affected by the Forex volatility. So, and I'm so sure from what we read and the knowledge that what we have, the knowledge that we have about this loan is basically to stabilize our Forex. And once we are able to do that, then we are sure that the growth that we desire will not be far from us. That is not a single indices. That is not a single index that can take us there, but it is one of the numerous indices
So are you
that is
justifying
needed.
the motive behind the loan? I mean, the reason given, talking about stabilizing the Naira and also the
Yes,
exchange rates.
yes,
So are you saying
yes.
it's the right way to go and it's sure to yield results?
Well, if what we see, what we read is what we go about, we are so sure it is the right way to go. There are no two ways about it. We really can allow Naira to dollar keep dancing around. We need to look for ways. And you know, the new administration came into power less than a year ago, and they've been running pillar to post to ensure that they achieve what they promised. And critical on that list of what they promised is to stabilize the economy. If the economy is not stable, not quite a lot of things can work. So if the loan is targeted at stabilizing our Naira, our currency, so be it. So the concern, the motive behind the loan is a very welcome motive. We then need to shift our attention to how do we monitor, how do we get carried along on the execution and the activities surrounding the usage of the loan. But for the motive, it is fantastic. No government anywhere in the world would fold its hands and allow forex volatility, foreign exchange volatility ruin its economy. You would always try as many as possible processes, ideas, schemes until you get it right.
Sheriff, I'm trying to understand basically how this works, and I'm sure it would also be in the interest of those watching. How will, an initiative like this directly impact on the Nigeria's Naira that is constantly on a free fall, right? I mean, we know that there are quite a number of factors involved to sort of ameliorate all of this. But right now we are talking about a loan to help stabilize an already falling Naira. Please, can you further break this down, how maybe they feel this intends to work?
Okay, you see, there are several processes and approaches to fighting this uh, uh, dragon. And one of the several ways is to increase the availability of dollars, which is the major um, giant against our Naira that has been dwarfed by several factors. That's one. Of course, the number one way of solving it is to increase our productivity. That's number one. No contention about that. Everybody knows that. Number one way is to increase our capital productivity. And how do we do that? That's a long-term thing. So what do we do on the short term? The scarcity of dollar, the pressure, the scarcity of dollar put on our Naira is alarming. So the availability of dollars will increase the strength of the Naira against the dollars. Of course, we have a lot of people who need to import things that are not produced in Nigeria. Now, chemicals for our manufacturing firms, those who need to go outside Nigeria for medical services. We see a lot of Nigerians who intend to study outside Nigeria. A lot of other things needs to be bought, needs to be imported. And our balance of trade has not got it to the level where the figure is comfortable. So what then do? We need to find several ways of making dollar available. So the scarcity of dollar goes down, the strength of Naira goes up. And one of the things the federal government has employed to do is this loan approach. And the beautiful thing is that if you read about the loan, you would realize this Project Gazelle, you realize that it is benchmarked against, collateralized against crude oil, meaning over a period of time, crude oil will be used in settlements for this loan. If we get this fund, that I think I read somewhere that about $2.5 billion of the 3.5 billion has been attained, has been achieved. Do you get? So if that is achieved, that is available, that is injected into the economy. You read, so I read somewhere, and I'm sure we all read towards the end of last year, that the new CBN governor made announcement through one or two channels that several banks that had been on queue requesting for USD have been serviced. So if this comes in, this threatens the ability of the CBN to service more requests. So the problem
sorry,
is that Nigeria.
You talked about the availability of the dollar to help, balance or stabilize the Naira being a key factor. But some have also said that the reason why you might also have maybe the dollar scarcity is because some people, pretty influential and powerful, are hoarding it. So it might not even be a situation of market forces here, at play, but the human factor, maybe greed, where you have individuals who connive with maybe the bureau de change, and they hoard these things to make more money, to cripple the economy to their advantage, and hence make everyone suffer, which of course in the long run, of course, will rub off on the economy. So I would also want you to look at that factor also. Do you think that given that particular factor, the human factor, right, the greed of some people, determined to cripple the economy, do you think this move would also sort of override that?
Well, it will, or it may, but that is subject to when you are able to neutralize their buying power. If the greedy capitalists within the system who have established in-years relationship with bureau de change operators and others within the system, if they decide to keep buying, maybe when you outrun their buying power, that's when that can be neutralized. But I'm so sure that is going to be a very difficult one. Yes, you really can't rule off, or rule out the influence of the greedy businessmen. You cannot. You really cannot. So that's exactly why.
But they're a major factor.
All of these
policies. So how do you think that can be controlled?
Well, that's when monitoring implementation of all of these government's influence then needs to come in. Monitoring needs to come in. A lot of impoundment needs to happen, because you really cannot fold your arms and allow people all of these funds. Yes, if I need to buy things from US, if I need to buy things from any part of the world, dollar is the most popular currency, and some people are somewhere buying this to all this so that they can determine the value. So yes, it's a big issue. It's a big issue, but there's always a third columnist about all of these narratives. I do not have all of their information. I do not work with the security services, neither do I have direct access to data from CBN and NNPCL. But the fact that we read on the newspapers and we understand things, we see what goes on in the society, tell us that certain things are not as they seem to us. We really cannot rule that out. I am so sure you and I know that there are people somewhere, 1, 2, 3, whatever number they are somewhere doing this. But the government would not say because a few Nigerians are not doing the right thing, then every Nigeria needs to suffer. That's why government is making this effort. And if you look at this is not a direct loan approach. Going back to the project Gazelle, with the little that I know, I think it runs on future, maybe not on forward, maybe on future. So where the rate at which the agreement is reached is fixed, and the rate is fixed at $65 per barrel. So all of this is to see how the CBN brings the best of deal to the table for the Naira. And
all right, now talking about the best of deals, let's look at the conditions, attached to the loan. I want you to also consider, in terms of the conditions, the tenor, the repayment terms, the collateral, and more importantly, the interest rate. Would you say it's favorable to Nigeria?
Well, you see, the best person, the strongest person who has the ability to walk away from the negotiation table is that person who has got nothing to lose. But when you have a lot at stake, you do not have the freedom to walk off the table, away from the table at will. So Nigeria walked away from that deal with an interest rate of a little above 12%. That I do not think is out of place. I do not think that is out of place. That is one. Then two, it is collateralized against the crude oil, benchmarked at $65 per barrel. And that does not in any way mean that every time we pay back with crude oil, we will lose whatever is surplus. Let's assume the crude oil price is $200 per barrel today, and we pay back with crude oil. They would not say, oh, because you have signed, according to the agreement, the excess will be serviced to the Nigerian government through the NNPCL, the excess in royalty, in taxes, and profits, if there are any, because the benchmark of agreement, that's one of the benefits of hedging and likes. So it's been hedged on a futures-based agreement, put staked at $65 per barrel. So if the price goes as high as 100, 150, 120, the excess will be handled between the two parties, Project Gazelle and the NNPCL. So meaning profitability is still in line, but that is even under assumption, all things being equal, market forces, global market forces within the crude oil market. The most important thing is we are in need of funds. We need enough USD to stabilize dollar, get ourselves out of the trenches that we are.
All right, now let's of course talk about another caveat on that particular.
I really don't think we can find.
Okay, are you there? Please, okay, let me just quickly throw in this question. Yes, let me throw in this question. Now, there's another caveat on this particular arrangement of the loan. Now, the federal government, of course, registered a special purpose vehicle, that's the SPV, for the deal in the Bahamas, a country which, of course, some will tell you is notorious for being a safe haven for illicit funds. Now, the question is this: why the Bahamas? Does that raise an eyebrow?
Well, for me, maybe I'm indifferent, in as much as the conditions we have on the document seem good and the monitoring seem good, because we've seen negative issues like the Project Paradise paper and the likes that happened. Does not in any way mean something good can come from that territory. So if we are able to secure a good deal, reasonable deal from that angle, we go for it. Our concern is we need to be as open as possible on that deal. So SPV was set up for this, understandable. Even organizations that I still work with, SPV is not out of place. The concern right now is how reliable is this existing SPV? And I think to a very large extent it is. How um, how open are they with what I have seen here and there to a very large extent, and I think it is open. So good enough. If you have further concerns, we should. It's democracy. We should put up letters, questions, and ask questions and get clarification. But for me, the SPV emanating from Bahamas, maybe not a big deal, but the biggest deal is what we have agreed to, and we are adhering. Are the two parties staying on course till the end of the project? That's it.
Now, one of the big, what I call it, issues is the fact that many times we see this big, theories and bold moves, by the government, and this very, well, I use the word bogus explanation right now. But the question still remains: how does this trickle down to the micro, not macro, the micro level, to that person on the street who just wants to go to the market and buy stuff, and that stuff keeps increasing every day? I'm talking of items as basic as feeding items, right?
Now let me tell you one very simple truth. An average Nigerian is a greedy person.
An average Nigerian is a greedy person.
Yes.
Why would you say that assertively?
No. I'm not saying every one of it. When you say an average, on the average,
okay,
maybe the number of people divided by the number of concerns and all of that. You see, we have gotten to the level where when people seem pleasant, we become suspicious, because a lot of Nigerians have shown a lot of Nigerians shaggy. Permit me to have that vocabulary. So it is not really about the government. It's about we nothing to do with. Apologies. Even those whose business has got nothing to do with dollar or exchange rate, we all clinch to it. But you really cannot blame them in totality, because if he does not buy, if he does not sell within the cycle of dollars, he consumes within the cycle of a product or service that is affected by USD. So Nigeria is in a cycle that is affected by the Forex. The bulk of the things we consume are being imported. Those that are manufactured here have got the larger part of their inputs imported. You buy a local made cream, perfume in Nigeria, the chemicals are imported. So when they are imported, they are affected by the dollar rate. So if we are able to neutralize that cost, it affects how much dollar costs, and that affects the cost of buying the chemicals, and that in turn affects the cost of producing the cream. It affects the cost of producing the toothpaste, and that in turn affects the cost at which we buy them. So you see, it probably may look like a white elephant, but it is not. It's a big picture trickle down. The moment the top is affected, it affects the average man on the street. You see, but one of the issues that I have is that not every increment that dollar does on the weakness of our, not every effect of every iota of effect of Forex on our currency directly affects every cost. Dollar is not the only input into what we sell. It's not the only input into what we buy. So we need to understand that there are other factors. So that's where we then need to come in as pleasant people. But because we are racing against poverty, we are racing against fear of the unknown, we want to stock as much as possible. And every Nigerian wants to make as much money as possible to protect himself or herself or his family against the unknown. So you really cannot blame them. But I can tell you confidently, sincerely, authoritatively, that for every policy that affects the volatility of dollar, that affects the strengthening of Naira against dollar, has effect. You really cannot consider, you really can't compare the cost of items when dollar is 1,000 naira to $1 to when if it goes up to 2,000 naira. We can't. It affects almost everything around us. Like I said earlier, if what you produce does not depend on dollar, what you consume would one way or the other depend on dollar. So you need to increase what you sell so that you can afford what you need to buy.
Sheriff, before I let you go, do you think this deal will impact also on the price of crude oil? On the price of petrol, sorry. That's the pump price for Nigerians.
Well, in my belief, I have not had the opportunity to share the Economic Council meeting. Neither have I had the opportunity to write strategy or policy paper. But what I think is this deal may not in any way, may not affect the pump price. What will affect the pump price is the availability of multiple sources. And one of such is Dangote Refinery, Port Harcourt Refinery, and the private modular refinery that I read about in Imo. If all of these come to a full-scale service, we are so sure what we need to import from wherever this importation is coming from will reduce. And that's what that then means is what we need to pay for petroleum oilage will be or should be off. If I am paying, let's put the context in Naira. Let's assume the cost of buying 1 liter of petrol from wherever this present petrol is coming from, the cost of buying it is 300 naira. The cost of the haulage from that, whatever the destination to Nigeria is 200, making 500. Taxes here and there, everything comes to 600 that we buy today. If Dangote refinery begins, Port Harcourt refinery, if most modular refinery begins, so haulage should be off. So if haulage is off, the cost should be affected. Should be. I'm not saying will be. I never said must be. Because I do not have the green pen or the red pen to make that happen. So we all what we read and what we conjure.
All right, Sheriff Adekoya, thank you so much for your time. Public Affairs Analyst joining from Lagos, Nigeria. Once again, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
All right, great. At this point, we'll go on a quick break. When we return, of course, the conversation continues. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is still the conversation. Now, Zimbabwe's main opposition leader has said on Thursday he has quit his party, accusing the country's ruling party of hijacking the organization and also causing the removal of dozens of his members of parliament and councillors. Nelson Chamisa, 45, was President Emmerson Mnangagwa's main rival in the 2018 and 2023 disputed elections. On Thursday, he accused Mnangagwa of decimating the opposition by authoritarian means. Now, joining me on the conversation right now is Nelson Chamisa, former Zimbabwe opposition leader, CCC party, joining from Harare in Zimbabwe. Thank you so much for your time, Nelson.
Well, thank you very much, my brother. Thank you.
All right, now let me start off with a quote from your, of course, statement that was released. Now, you said that the original CCC idea has, however, been contaminated, bastardized, hijacked by Zanu-PF through the abuse of state institutions. Now, the CCC idea has, however, been contaminated, and in your word, you also said that the CCC has not been aligned to its founding purpose and mandate. You further said the CCC has now been rendered an extension of and has been taken over by Zanu-PF. And of course, you went on in that particular statement saying that it's been criminally handed over to Zanu-PF. I would need you to clarify what you meant with these strong words.
Well, thank you very much. Just to emphasize the point that in Zimbabwe,
Nelson Chamisa, are you there? Nelson, if you can hear me, we lost you for a moment.
by the ruling party, by Mr. Mnangagwa.
Okay. We can hear you now. Please go ahead. We lost you for a moment.
Something that must be sorted out.
Nelson, I'm sorry we lost you for a moment. Would you like to please kindly repeat yourself?
Well, I'm so sorry. Maybe it's a network issue, but I was saying that in terms of the way things are done in Zimbabwe, we are supposed to have the withdrawal or recalling of members of parliament on account of their party recalling them or withdrawing them for having ceased to be to being members of that party. So over the past weeks, we've been seeing the withdrawal of our members against our decision, against our resolutions from Parliament. We contested this in the courts, but unfortunately, what we have discovered and what we have realized is the fact that there is connivance between Mr. Mnangagwa, Zanu-PF, and the impositor who was withdrawing our members from Parliament.
Okay, on what grounds, of course, we understand, but on what grounds do you think your members were, of course, unseated outside what we know as public knowledge?
Well, look, Parliament is supposed to be objective, but the Parliament has not been objective. They've listened to a person who is not even a party member, who has written to Parliament, masquerading and pretending to be a member. We went to court to try and stop this member. Surprisingly and unfortunately, the court actually supported this member. So what we actually are talking about is hijacked, is this kind of connivance that we have seen between the Parliament, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, and other institutions of the state to support somebody who actually has never been a member of the party to withdraw our members.
All right, let's talk about the fact that even within the party, it seems that all is not united, as some factions within the party are not even comfortable with the fact, let me use it this way, your style of leadership and the fact that you even left the party. How do you react?
Well, I must say that the party has never had any problem. We are only beginning to see now, others would have been removed by those people in the party, but I have resigned because I've said I don't want to be part of this circus. It wastes my energies, it drowns our focus. We are diverted unnecessarily to focus on useless issues. You know, Zimbabwe has far bigger problems. We had a contested election, a disputed election on account of the 23rd of August 2023 election, which election has not been resolved. Because we appeal to SADC, we petition SADC to resolve the fraud, the gigantic fraud that we witnessed in the electoral process. So that issue is still live, and we need to make sure that it is resolved. We can't be focusing on illegal by-elections that are instigated on account of illegalities.
Now, talking about, of course, still the CCC, an interim committee running the CCC led by Buso Siso said he will ask you for the records of the party's finances and donations. Now, did you hand over the party financial records before exiting?
Well, where on earth is just politics by Zanu-PF? I don't hold or manage any of the accounts because that's not the duty of a president. The president, his policy, his vision. You know, there are people who deal with those issues, and they are in the party, so they can account.
Now, I mean, you've accused Zanu-PF, I mean, a couple of times that it's a party that oftentimes uses the courts to destroy opposition. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's evidence that is so clear. You know, this is not the first time, my dear brother. In 2018, we had the party called MDCT, in fact, 2017 to 2018, led by President Morgan Tsvangirai. We succeeded upon his death, may his soul rest in peace. But then Zanu-PF came and gave this party to another, from our side. We then had to form another party, MDC Alliance, as we went into the 2018 elections. Again, Zanu, because we defeated them and they were not happy, they would not forgive us for that. After the election, they went to the Supreme Court and gave the MDC alliance, took it away from us. Even the headquarters, the party headquarters, members of parliament were withdrawn, give it to another. So what they've done with the Triple C is basically a trend and a pattern that we have seen. So it's a cycle. And I refuse to be part of that dance. So it's not conjecture, it's not guesswork, it's factual and it's evident, and the evidence is there, it's on record.
Now, I mean, we understand the fact that you said you don't want to be part of all of the quote-unquote shenanigans happening within the party and all of that. But I also would like to ask you, is there any form of threat to your life, you know, and could that have also been one of the reasons maybe why you left the party?
Well, I must say that the fact that I've challenged Mr. Mnangagwa and we are challenging dictatorship in this country puts our lives in the line of danger. But that's not our concern. You know that at some point my convoy was shotted. I survived death by a whisker. So the evidence is there. Some of the members in the opposition have died on account of politics in Zimbabwe.
Now let's talk about what's in the line, what's in the pipeline, what's next?
Well, what's next is victory. What's next is a proper government, a meaningful government, a responsive and responsible government, an accountable and developmental government, also on the back of resolving the issues that we have that are outstanding. There has to be a return to democracy, a return to legitimacy. We need majority rule in Zimbabwe. So what's next is for us to galvanize citizens, have a citizens movement, and demand accountability, transparency, and giving effect to the will of the people.
Are you going to form another political party?
Hello?
Are you going to form another or join another political party?
Well, you don't necessarily need to form a political party. We need to form the next government. That's our preoccupation. The business of forming parties is behind us. Now the next form of institution must constitute its government.
Now, do you also foresee maybe party members that are loyal to you also, you know, taking the next, the same move similar to yours, leaving the party?
Well, I suppose it's an individual decision and choice, but look, my focus is to galvanize the citizens of Zimbabwe beyond just political parties, but have that broad change, that broad amalgamation of forces, citizens' forces, to achieve and realize change in our lifetimes.
So how do you feel that Zimbabweans will believe in you, will believe in your vision, will believe in your tenacity, will believe in your leadership? How do you think they will take this move of yours?
They know that this is the best foot forward. They know that we are charting a new course. They know that this is a fresh start. And they are very clear that we are moving mountains and we are breaking new ground. And I can tell you that they are excited. The base is energized. People support. They believe. And I can tell you, you need to come to Zimbabwe. People know that when it comes to resolving our issues, they know that we are the answer to the questions that they are facing. We need change yesterday, and we are that change people are waiting for.
Now, talking about change, looking at democracy right now in Zimbabwe, what do you think is missing, and what can be done to further, will I say, boost democracy and also ensure that the people enjoy the dividends of democracy and the voices of the masses, you know, are heard?
Well, I must say that the critical thing is to understand that leadership is important. Everything starts and ends with leadership. But not just that, we need strong institutions. Africa's biggest problem is that we have strong men instead of strong institutions. We need strong institutions that are able to sustain the big ideas about where our continent should go, where our countries and various nations should go. So our focus, our investment is on making sure that we build strong institutions, independent institutions, credible, accountable institutions, institutions that are non-partisan, institutions that are able to serve all citizens, institutions that are for everyone. That is what Zimbabwe needs: good governance, democracy, freedom, justice, and of course, making sure that we restore the dignity for all the citizens. That takes a lot of effort, a lot of commitment and sacrifice, and we have provided that kind of leadership that is necessary.
You said quite a lot of things, but before I let you go, you've often referred to Mnangagwa as authoritarian, and you also highlighted some of the things you feel that can further boost democracy in Zimbabwe. Do you think you have, I mean, should the next elections come up and you choose to run, do you think you have what it takes to deliver? 30 seconds.
Well, the choice is made by the people. I'm available because I feel that I'm equal to the task. As to the decision, it has already been confirmed. The people of Zimbabwe voted for us overwhelmingly in 2018. But of course, Mr. Mnangagwa cheated in the election. 2023, we won again resoundingly. But of course, the shenanigans were again at play. This is common cause. SADC has it. The AU reports from the Observer Mission reports have it. So it's not a question of whether or not we can make it. It's a question of when we are going to make it. And it's going to come. Our time is coming.
Nelson Chamisa, former Zimbabwe opposition leader, CCC party, thank you so much for your time.